Welcome everybody back to Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV. I'm Tristan Harlan here with Cooper Melder, and today we're going to have a short show just talking nothing but straight foosball here on Wolf Roundtable. Cooper, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Tristan. Thanks for asking, and I'm doing good, but Arkansas State football team, they're not doing hot at all right now.
Right. Last week they went to Ames, Iowa to play Iowa State, and for lack of better terms, it was a one-sided affair. I mean, they lost, 52-7, and, it was not pretty by any means.
No, I mean, they had 253 passing yards, 237 rushing yards. I mean, if you want to beat Arkansas State, all you have to do is line up under center and hand it off to a thing called a tailback, and you'll probably win the game because our run defense is absolutely terrible. I mean, we can't tackle to save our lives. I mean, Rayner, I'm about to put out a missing person poster because I haven't seen him since week 2. And, Jaquez Cross, I don't even know where he's at, if I'm being honest. He hasn't been really on the team at all here recently. So it's really, I don't know what's going on. People are talking about the moral victories against Michigan and all that crap, but we came in it, and it reminded me almost of the 73-0 game we went to. I was watching it, and I was like, well, at least we didn't go to that game because we were talking about going to that game this year. And so if our final 2 away games that we got to see for the Red Wolves was Oklahoma and then Iowa State, I mean, we would be bad luck. We definitely would be bad luck, but I mean, they played absolutely terrible. I mean, we talk about Rayner every week. We talked about him last year, how he was going to be this guy. Well, Rayner, you got to step it up. I mean, you look terrible. I mean, there's no way to say anything else. I can't be nice about it. He looked terrible. I mean, his first interception of the day, he just lobbed it right over to him. Terrible.
Right, and I mean, look, here's the thing, and let me make this statement right now before everybody gets upset with what Cooper and I are going to say on the show. We do not represent Arkansas State athletics. We do not represent Arkansas State University. We are sole media outlets that talk about the Red Wolves on a idea that nobody else talks about because we tell you the truth. We tell you nothing but the truth. But this Red Wolf team, when they played UCA week 1, okay, yes, I said it here on the show. They should have lost that game. Cooper and I talked about it. That was a very close game. You go to week 2, you win that game. Okay, the Red Wolves 2-0. They beat Tulsa first time they're 2-0 since 2008. Okay, cool. We knew we were going to lose. We knew the Arkansas State Red Wolves was going to lose to Michigan. But here's where I kind of get lost in the sauce, for lack of better terms, is that this team does not look the same that they did in week 2 or week 1 when they won games here at home. They look like a completely different team. They look like the 2022 Red Wolves when James Blackman was at the helm at quarterback. They can't throw the ball. They can't run the ball. Anytime they try to run the ball, Jaquez Cross immediately falls down. Cedric Hawkins is hurt. He's out for the year. I mean, what is it going to take for this Red Wolves team to get fired up enough to where they win, 4 more games so they're bowl eligible at least, or maybe even 1 more to win 7 to guarantee you're going to a bowl? But what I'm really concerned is, and I get teams are not healthy. Arkansas State is not a 100% healthy team. We have not seen 100% of a healthy Arkansas State Red Wolves offense this year. But when you've got guys that are getting watched by the Senior Bowl that have gotten all this recognition in the preseason, you've got to translate that to the field. I get maybe some of the things we say on this show may be a little too harsh sometimes, but we don't say it out of a nature of a bad conscience. We say this because we care about this team. We want to see this team win. But when you're going out there and you're a star quarterback like Jalen Rayner, who's been wanting to chase his bag, and he was the freshman of the year, and he's throwing 5 for 16 and 68 yards and 2 interceptions, something has got to change. When you're going to the Manning Passing Academy and you're coming in the next season and you look like an absolute horrible quarterback, something's got to change. We said on the show last year that Rayner took over for Shrout and JT Daniels, I think's his last name.
Not JT Daniels.
Not JT Daniels. I don't know where I'm getting that
JT
from.
Strout and Jackson Daly.
Thank you. I'm getting the names mixed up here because there's been so many names.
If we had JT Daniels.
Anyways, dummy, yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, okay? But Rayner took the helm of this team last season and played, Cooper's favorite word, tremendously.
Yep.
But, I mean, you're going to this team that we thought Arkansas State was going to have a better result against, and you're throwing 2 interceptions. Cooper mentioned it. You lob one up that looks like you're playing with your little brother in the backyard. But when is it going to be enough? When is it going to change? I mean, it came out here recently that Coach Jones and Jalen Rayner has reached out to former NFL head coach John Gruden to kind of work some John Gruden magic because, I mean, let's be honest, despite his controversies, John Gruden is one of the smartest men when it comes to the game of football. He's one of the smartest head coaches of all time that we've seen in Cooper in his lifetime. But, and I'll go back to Cooper here in a second, when you're, for a total offense, you're throwing 780 passing yards and you're almost at the 1,000-yard range for a total offense, you've really got to look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, when is enough enough? When is this Red Wolves team going to put it all on the field? I mean, let's be real. How many more times are we going to come out here on the show and say, oh, yeah, the Red Wolves look great, but the Red Wolves are a great team, but the Red Wolves have a tremendous offense, but when are the buts going to leave the conversation and we can finally talk about Arkansas State in a good light, the ones that nobody's talked about this team since 2019?
I mean, can't say it any better myself, but like for Arkansas State, you're looking at it, and yes, we don't play South Al this week. We get, a bye week, and then we come back for homecoming. But I know we played the defending champions in Michigan, and I know Iowa State's a really good team. And yeah, they looked okay against Michigan, and they looked terrible. I mean, absolutely terrible against Iowa State. We didn't expect them to win, but you expected them to at least be in the game, put up a better fight than what it was. It looked like they came out there, and it reminded me of the Washington game. I think it was Butch Jones' first year when they went to Washington and absolutely just got demolished. Washington wasn't a good team. It wasn't the Washington team we saw last year that was playing. It was barely a 5-win Washington team that year. I mean, we got smoked, and that's what it reminded me of. They got off the plane or wherever, if they drove or not, went in, did their walkthroughs, and then they didn't want to be there. They did not want to be there. They got hit in the mouth, and they were tired of actually playing some competition for 2 straight weeks, and things weren't going their way. So what do? They cower down, make dumb mistakes, and then you get beat 52-7. I mean, yeah, we could only get 64 rushing yards, 2 fumbles, 2 interceptions, just looked absolutely terrible. There's not a good way to put it. And then you're thinking, okay, we got South Alabama back at home on October 5th, homecoming. Well, if you haven't been keeping track to South Alabama, they're going to probably put up 58 points against us if we keep playing like the way we do. They're going to come in on homecoming, they're going to kick the crap out of us, and then really what's going to happen is that stadium that we've seen that's been build up, it's going to look like it was midway through the season after we got our butts kicked by Memphis and Oklahoma. I mean, the fans are going to stop showing up because I'm just going to call everyone out. Our fans are terrible. We have the most fair weather fans ever. They only want to show up when, they're not doing too good, blah, blah, blah. They don't get into the game. You have to hype them up. I mean, you should already come to the game hype. But I don't know. I'm calling the team out. I'm calling our fans out because, quite frankly, everything right now with this team is going to go downhill quick. And if you get beat, if you get your butts kicked by South Alabama, who's a red-hot team right now, you're going to see some unhappy people.
Right, and here's the thing, okay? Jalen Rayner, yes, he has not played well. He's not played well up to this point. We've talked about that. But are we going to see Timmy McClain take over like Jalen Rayner did last year? Quarterback plays not well, so the backup comes in and kind of is the unsung hero of the season. I mean, don't get me wrong. Jalen Raynor is a very talented quarterback. He's a very talented college athlete. He can easily throw the ball, run the ball. He can do anything you want in offense. But, and I'm kind of simmered down a little bit. I'm not going to yell anymore. But when you sit there and you look at this offense and you look at what has transpired this entire era of Butch Jones, you've lost not even recruits. You've lost players to the portal. You've gained players back from the portal. Corey Rucker, I'm looking at you. But when is it going to be enough to where Andy Kwan and Coach Jones and Coach Heckendorf finally sits the offensive line down and says, look, guys, you've got to start blocking. I can't tell you how many times this season and last season I've sat there and watched the offensive line. They're starting their block for 2 seconds, and then they let them go. I mean, I'm not going to say any names for sake of, I have a lot of friends on the team. But, and don't get me wrong, I'm saying this with the best intentions possible. I'm probably not saying it the best way, but what's going to transpire when you're only blocking a guy for 2 seconds and a 6'7", 360-pound lineman is getting through that offensive line and is hitting Raynor 20 times a game, or putting pressure on him 20 times a game, I should say? What's going to happen if Jalen Raynor, knock on wood, gets hurt because this offensive line cannot block? It reminds me of the movie The Blind Side. Cooper and I, that's one of our favorite movies. But the left tackle, got to be quick as a hiccup. And our left tackle right now, it doesn't even look like he could block a beagle running in from the field. I mean, I'm being honest here. When is it going to be time to when this team finally starts blocking? When is it going to be time to where our defensive tackles and our defensive line finally gets pressure to quarterbacks, finally stops runs from being a 20 to 60-yard gain to only being a 5-yard gain? When's it going to be finally time to where teams are going to run it on first down and it's automatically a 2nd and 9 or 2nd and 8 or even a 2nd and 10, or run it on 2nd down and it's a 3rd and 9, 3rd and 5, or 3rd and 10? When is it going to be enough to where this team is going to look at themselves in the mirror, the coaches are going to look at themselves in the mirror and say, okay, we had a lot of momentum to start. We got a lucky win against UCA, which, again, should have been a loss. And then we absolutely dominated Tulsa in that second half. But when's it going to be enough to where this team says, okay, we thought we were good, but we're really not. How can we rejuvenize this offense to where they can match a 50 plus points per game South Alabama team? Because let's be real, South Alabama, they play LSU this weekend. I'm a big LSU fan. I grew up an LSU fan, but I as an LSU fan, am scared that South Alabama may walk into Tiger Stadium and upset LSU. Let's be real. The Sun Belt is such a good football conference that even mediocrity from the Arkansas State Red Wolves is terrible. James Madison came in this conference and knocked everybody on their tail ends, and now everybody's like, oh, we've got to step up. Texas State had one of the best off seasons this year. They had so much talent return to that team and come to the team via the portal, and now they look like one of the best teams in the conference. A team, might I remind you, that Arkansas State, scored 60, 70-plus points on last season at home to be bowl eligible? What's going to happen when they go to San Marcos? I mean, I've said it. I think the Red Wolves are going to win. Well, what's former Red Wolf Lincoln Perry going to do? Is he going to run for 200 yards? Is he going to run for 400 yards? That's how bad our run defense is. I mean, to quote Jim Mora, they can't run the ball, they can't pass the ball. This team absolutely stinks. And I hate to say this, and I'm probably going to, catch the wind of certain parties. I don't care. This team has got to step something up, and they've got to step it up soon. I get we're in the bye week. I get that it's a long season ahead, but guys, I'm telling you this right now. I look at these teams. I study these teams. I come on the show every week and talk about these teams. When is enough going to be enough? I'm tired of coming on this show saying the Red Wolves gave up 50 points. I'm tired of saying the Red Wolves had all the chances in the world to win, but Coach Jones and Coach Heckendorf can't go for it on a 4th and 2 with Raynor 6 for 6 on an opening drive. When's enough going to be enough? When's college football finally going to be college football again? When are we going to start winning college football games here in Jonesboro so that the fans come into the stadium? I want to piggyback off Cooper real quick. He called out the fans. I'm going to do the same thing. You guys are such one-dimensional fans. You're the same way on Twitter. You want to praise a team when they're doing well, but they go into Ann Arbor and they lose by 10 against the defending national champions, and you're counting it as a win. You're counting it as a win. Why are you counting something like that as a win so you could go to Iowa State and get knocked in the mouth like they did last week? When is enough going to be enough?
All I have to say is, you brought up James Madison. If you want to be the best team in the Sun Belt, if you want to be a top dog, if the Red Wolves want to be a top dog, look at James Madison. They went into North Carolina, dropped 70 points on. I mean, went to North Carolina. The Tar Heels, a good team in the ACC, dropped 70-1. If you want to be back to what y'all were during the glory days, you might say it, you have to start beating these power teams. I mean, I get back when early 2010s until almost 2019, if I'm being quite honest, the Sun Belt was absolutely terrible. It sucked. And that's why I'm going to be honest, that's why Arkansas State could have 4 coaches in 4 years and win conference, because, the Sun Belt was absolutely terrible. I mean, terrible. I mean, Arkansas State, they were going in, getting beat 58-3 to Georgia, getting beat 66-7 to Alabama, getting beat by USC, big teams like that. And then they would go on and have their easy schedule and win the Sun Belt. Times are changing. You have App State, you have James Madison, you have Texas State, you have the transfer portal. If you want to get back to where you were, it's going to have to start now. Because right now, this little path we're taking, we're going to end up in the bottom with our favorite team, ULM. And that's all I have to say about that.
ULM, eh?
Yeah.
But and here's what I'll say, and then we'll take a break and we'll come back and we'll kind of look at the rest of the season from where we stand today. But what I want to say is, and again, this is going to be my last thing before we go to break, but I don't know how I want to say this without coming off rude and coming off incompetent and coming off like I don't know the game of football. I get there's a lot of different variables in every game that can change on a snap of a finger. I get that. But when you have a head coach that used to be the special assistant to Nick Saban, and you have an offense coordinator that's been here long overdue, I'm not going to say he should be fired because I don't do that. I don't agree with his play calling, but I'm not going to say he should be fired because I don't want to wish that on anybody. But what I will say is this. We have the talent. We have the coaching staff to do it. Why are we continuously almost shooting ourselves in the foot because we don't want to play aggressive football? Why are we sitting here playing football that would have worked in 2016 or 2015, but we're in 2024 and the days of a tailback running it down your throat every single down is the day of old. I mean, we had a 3rd and 26, 3rd and 36, whatever, against Iowa State, and instead of trying to air it out and get Courtney Jackson, who's arguably the fastest receiver in the Sun Belt that's starting, is to get him the ball. We run it with Jaquez Cross and Zach Wallace for 5 yards and then go out and punt. I just don't get that play calling. I mean, maybe there's something I don't see because I'm not on the headset. I'm not there. But what I will say is that they've got to start playing more aggressive football, and it's got to start happening now, or it's going to be just like 2022 when Butch Jones only won 2 games. That's where we're going right now. Two games is where we're going to end up winning if we don't change something.
Yep.
But we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to look at the rest of the season and how the Red Wolves can take the loss against Iowa State and use it as a positive. Stick around.
Students should watch ASU-TV just to see the creativity that a college student can get. The creativity that some of these students have is truly amazing. Getting that experience can really just take you further, and I feel like our program does that for a lot of students.
ASU-TV, covering all your favorite sports. From Red Wolf Roundtable to West Side football and more, ASU-TV has you covered. Tune in now to ASU-TV for news and coverage on these sports and more.
ASU-TV, shows like Red Wolf Roundtable, ASU-TV News, West Side Football, and more. Gain real-life experience while doing what you love. Get involved with ASU-TV today.
Welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV, and we talked about what's happened in the past, but let's talk about what's going on in the future. So right now, the Red Wolves, they sit 2-2. Tristan Harlan here with Cooper Melder back for Red Wolf Roundtable. They sit at 2-2, and there's a long season ahead. I mean, we've got the schedule and a graphic that we keep track with it. As you can see, I mean, 2 wins, 2 losses. But Cooper, looking at this schedule right here, give me your thoughts. I mean, I'm going to start calling you Coach because, you know, you come from that background, you come from that family. But what does Coach Melder see in this graphic right here?
I'm looking at October 5th and October 12th, and I'm saying if things don't change quick, we're going to be looking at 2-4. I mean, this is a brutal schedule. I mean, the way the Sun Belt has been turning out, the only guaranteed 2 wins I have on this schedule, I mean guaranteed, is ULM and ODU. Those teams, I will get to ULM November 23rd. But ODU, they're not having a good season at all. But you're looking at South Al on October 5th, homecoming. That's going to be that could get ugly quick. Then you have Texas State, who's been this dominant team. That could get ugly quick. And then you have Southern Miss, who, we beat last year, but for some reason, we cannot win on the road. I mean, there's just something about going to Mississippi. We're not able to win on the road. And then Troy, not even.
We'll get to that when we get to that.
Yeah, and I know it says homecoming on Troy. They actually changed it. Homecoming's against South Alabama.
Oh, they did? Okay.
Yes.
I'm glad you pointed that out because I was looking at that kind of confused. But, I mean, take away from that graphic. But here's the thing that I mentioned earlier, and I want to dive into it a little bit. But, of course, we talked about Rayner being from the Manning Passing Academy and what he did there, but it didn't seem like it's worked. I mean, let's be real. I think everybody's trying to turn every quarterback into Patrick Mahomes, one-trick pony, but regardless, this is where we're at now. So Butch Jones and Jalen Rayner have reached out to John Gruden, who we briefly discussed about what Rayner can fix and what he's doing wrong and, you know, how he can improve. Now, for those that are kind of looking at that with a sour face because of, you know, certain things that we're not going to dive into with John Gruden, I want to read off these names for you real quick. So John Gruden used to have this show called Quarterback Camp on ESPN, and here's some of the names that appeared on the show. You had Geno Smith, Johnny Manziel, Josh Dobbs, Coach Jones connection there, Jimmy Garoppolo, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, Dak Prescott, Andrew Luck, RG3, Jared Goff, Cam Newton, and Jameis Winston. That list right there is some of the best quarterback play that we've seen in the National Football League in the past 5 years, okay? Now, don't stop me there. The quarterbacks that have been coached by John Gruden, Rich Gannon and Brad Johnson, who won a Super Bowl under John Gruden, and then don't even forget the coaches that came from John Gruden's tree, Bill Callahan, Mike Tomlin, former assistant here at Arkansas State, Jay Gruden, Sean McVay, Super Bowl winning coach, Kyle Shanahan, and Brian Callahan. Now, you're hearing that and you're like, okay, what does that got to do with the Red Wolves? What does that got to do with Arkansas State? I thought this was Arkansas State show. I say that to say this. All this talent that has gone to John Gruden or has been under John Gruden's wing at one point or time in their career, this is an absolutely baller move from Coach Jones and Jalen Rayner. If there was one person I would send Jalen Rayner to, it would have been John Gruden. Of course, there's others, but sadly, those people are no longer with us anymore. They've passed on. They're in heaven now. But from a standpoint of coaching and who could fix Jalen Rayner and his passing mistakes and his how much he's been doubting himself, it's John Gruden. Now, of course, John Gruden currently doesn't have a job, but what John Gruden does, and Cooper, you probably can hit more on this than I can coming from your background of coaching, but John Gruden is easily the smartest coach when it comes to quarterback play right now that does not have a job. Of course, there's others in the league that probably doesn't have the time to sit down with a college kid and say, hey, here's what you're doing wrong, here's what you can fix. But John Gruden arguably is the smartest man when it comes to quarterback play. And Cooper, I want to pitch it to you real quick. What do you think about this move? Is it a smart move by Coach Jones? Like, where your head's at?
I mean, it can't be a bad move because you're looking at it. Okay, yes, like Tristan said, John Gruden, won't really get into that. But John Gruden, as an NFL coach, as when he was with the Raiders, I mean, he helped the Raiders, I mean, when they were bad, actually be something. When he had all that drama with Antonio Brown, that team went on and made the playoffs that year. I mean, look, he had if you're looking at it, he's never had a crazy good quarterback as a head coach. He had to work with Derek Carr. I mean, Derek Carr, he's not the best quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo, don't even get me started. But it's not a bad move because if he can help Derek Carr succeed in the NFL, if he can help Jimmy Garoppolo somewhat succeed in the NFL, he can definitely help Jalen Raynor. Now, Butch Jones, he has all these connections. The only thing that kind of has me questioning about is why reach out now? Where was it throughout the offseason when, we saw it in the red and white or the scarlet and black game, my bad. Jalen Raynor was kind of, okay, maybe it's just early in the season. He didn't look like he did in last year, yeah. And then you're kind of watching it, you're like, okay, it's the beginning of the season. Come out week 1, you're like, ugh. Then you come out week 2, you're like, okay, we got to win, probably feeling a little better that first half. Okay, what's up? All right, okay, look at this. He's back to normal. He can come back when we got Jalen Raynor back. Then you watch the Michigan game, and you're like, uh-oh. And then you watch Iowa State, you're thinking, oh, something I'm not going to say because I'm just not going to go there. And it's just kind of one of those things. It's like, it's good he's going to him now, but why wait so long if there's in my opinion, the problem's been since the Scarlet and Black game. He really hasn't been the same quarterback. But you got to try everything. I mean, I'm to the point to try everything. Bring Bill Belichick onto your roster. I mean, he's not doing anything besides going and talking on the Eli Manning cast with Peyton.
Right. Well, and here's the thing, okay? So you brought that up, but here's where I think the cause for doing it now is, we mentioned Manning Passing Academy, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, two of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. If you don't agree, argue with your mother. I don't care. That's Eli and Peyton Manning are two of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. There's no doubt about it. Maybe not the greatest, but they're some of the greatest. But the Manning family as a whole has produced generational talent since the 60s. Archie Manning went to Ole Miss, then he went to New Orleans, and, the New Orleans Saints was the New Orleans Saints back then, and they sucked. I'm a Saints fan, so I can say that. And then Peyton Manning, Cooper Manning, it was Peyton, then Cooper. Peyton Manning went to Tennessee instead of Ole Miss. Then he went on to be a really good quarterback, won a couple Super Bowls. I'm sure you know who Peyton Manning is, the sheriff. Cooper Manning, of course, didn't have the, great career.
He had health problems.
He had health problems, but he still played at Newman in New Orleans. Still good receiver. Then Eli Manning comes along, goes to Ole Miss. He does his thing, gets drafted by the Chargers, says, hey, I don't want to play for you guys, goes to the Giants, ends up beating Tom Brady twice in the Super Bowl, cements his legacy with the New York Giants. But I say that to say this, and that's kind of my phrase, I say that to say this. But the Manning Passing Academy, and I don't know if it's, and I could be completely wrong here, but I don't know how much of that actually translates to the game. Like, yes, you could go out there, work on your footwork, throw a couple deep balls, work on your arm strength and your accuracy, but how much of that is actually live football practice? Like, how much of that is actually where you have defenders running at you and trying to sack you and trying to get the ball away from you? Now, I'm not discrediting the Manning Passing Academy because, it's an illustrious kind of venture to go there. But when you got a guy like John Gruden coming in to help Rayner, it's really well because if you go back and you look at and you watch some of that quarterback camp episodes when he was on ESPN, and he really helped some of these quarterbacks understand formations, understand routes, and one of my favorite play calls from that episode, what was it, Y2 Spider Banana or something like that. And he really helps develop, and he understands route running and understands formations, defensive alignments, defensive shifts. And, we can go on and on and on about that. But looking at it from a grand scheme of things is that if Rayner wants to have the same success that he had last year, if this team wants to find success in the passing game, it's not going to hurt to ask. Heck, Coach Jones has a connection to Nick Saban. Nick Saban's not doing anything but eating tomahawk steaks from Pat McAfee right now. So surely, maybe he comes to Jonesboro and helps this team out. They need all the help they can get. So why wait until the season's over to get it? Now is better than any time that you can really go for. And, and I want to shift focus, but, with Coach Jones having these connections, we haven't talked about this a lot on the show, but I want to talk about it today. How much do you think these connections Coach Jones has affects the NIL in Jonesboro? Of course, it's kind of a say-so, teeter-totter thing because, of course, it's not really money, but it's connections to help athletes get to that next level. So I want to hear your thoughts on that.
I feel like Coach Jones, he has these connections, yes, but his biggest connection was with Tennessee, and that bridge has been burnt. You see Tennessee fans, they prey on his downfall. The entire state of Tennessee, Knoxville, that whole area, they prey on that man's downfall. They do not like him whatsoever. They do not. Rocky Top does not like Butch Jones anymore. That's gone. But I really don't think we're going to see even with his connections, any more NIL coming to Jonesboro. NIL in Jonesboro right now, we don't get the luxury of Walmart and the Tyson chicken and all that over up in the University of Fayetteville. Look at their head coach. He's been eating on that Tyson chicken. But
No comment.
And I just don't see, yes, he may have good connections, but has he really been using them? This is the first time we heard him even using a connection like John Gruden. Yeah, he's probably been able to get some NFL scouts to practices, this, and that. But this is the first time we ever heard Butch Jones actually reaching out to one of these connections. Because I know he could probably reach out to Nick Saban. Nick Saban, he's retired. He's the greatest coach of all time. And he would give him pointers because, Nick Saban's the type of coach that if you're looking at coaches that all worked under Nick Saban, Lane Kiffin, Kirby Smart, they've all gone on and succeeded. There's plenty more, but Coach Saban has had many assistant coaches work under him that have gone on to do great things. So if Butch Jones can just reach out to him, what advice could you get that would make everything go terrible? Because I know you mentioned the Manning camp. The Manning camp's not a camp that Jalen Rayner should have gone to, in my opinion. It does not. I feel like Manning and Jalen Rayner, two different style of play. You look at John Gruden, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Jared Goff, Andrew Luck, RG3. Those are players that are more of the same play style of Jalen Rayner. So using John Gruden as a connection is good, but back to what you said, I don't think we're going to see much NIL with his connections.
Right, and we mentioned that, so I kind of want to start the conversation. We don't have to get too much into it, but I want to start this conversation because I think it's one that is worth having, but it's not worth getting too worked up about. And it's this, and this is the big question, but do you think the NIL in Jonesboro could do a better job at marketing and giving publicity, or however you say that word? Thank you. I've always had trouble with that word. But do you think it's time where they put the student athlete as a forefront and kind of not get rid of, but kind of move from the team over me kind of mentality when it comes to NIL?
You see, it's a tough question because obviously you're looking at some of these schools. I mean, heck, we'll go for UCA, for example. I mean, UCA is surrounded by, Little Rock. They're close to Fort Smith. They're close to all these big cities that, will go out and help support everything like that. University of Fayetteville, you have Bentonville, you have Rogers, you have all these bigger cities. And then you look at Arkansas State. You have Jonesboro, you have Arkansas State, and then you have farmland. I mean, you have Newport, but it's Newport. You have Harrisburg, you have all these small towns. It's a farming community. So that's the problem with our NIL. I think if we could start, I think it's time, whoever's the best player on the team, yeah, they're going to get paid more. Whoever's the most popular player on the team, yeah, they're going to get paid more. I mean, if you look at the University of Texas, Arch Manning, he's getting paid $3.1 million to be a backup quarterback, but since his last name's Manning and he's very popular and people know that name, they're going to want to use his face, use his name and likeness to, put him out there. I feel like we need to start doing the same. I mean, no offense to a kicker or punter, but if I look up on a billboard and I see some random punter, I'm going to be like, did they hire an actor and put him up there? But if you put Jaquez Cross or Jalen Rayner on a billboard, they're going to be like, I know who that is. Okay, maybe I will go check out this place. And then that's when the NIL starts to roll in. You use your popular players to bring in more money. I mean, it's simple. You look at jersey sales in the NFL. They're buying wide receiver 1, quarterback 1, the running back. If you're having a player like Aaron Donald, you'll get that, or a TJ Watt. Unless it's your mama or your grandma, you're not buying a kicker jersey. You're not buying a punter jersey, or you're not buying some random nickel safety jersey. I mean, you're buying the jerseys of the people that are the most popular. And get mad all you want, but that's just plain and simple and how it is.
Right. So we want to go ahead and move focus now. And, we could talk about NIL another day. But for right now, I want to move forward to our game day picks. It's kind of been back and forth between the two of us. But, I mean, you're taking a big advantage on me now. I need you to drop a couple games, but you're seeing it now. And unfortunately, I'm 8-4. Cooper's 10-2. I blame his coaching background for that. I think he's cheating. But you're looking at the games we picked this week, and, of course, the first one we've kind of hit on a little bit, which we usually don't do. It's South Al taking on LSU. Of course, we both got LSU. I am biased on that one. I'm surprised Cooper picked LSU, being a fan of who he is a fan of. But
Wolves up, baby.
Moving on to Liberty and App State, you actually taken the Mountaineers there.
Yeah, I'm just taking it. I mean, they got the crap beat out of them by South Alabama last week. I feel like they're going to bounce back at home and really go Mountaineers is basically all I got to say.
Right, and then, of course, we had the similar kind of mindset when it came to the Cajuns versus Wake Forest. I mean, Wake Forest, I don't see Louisiana Lala beating them.
It'll be a good game.
It'll be a good game, but I don't see Lala getting that advantage. And then, of course, the last game, another game we're different on, Georgia Southern versus Georgia State. And, man, if you just drop those two games, I'll be back in front.
I know. I took Georgia Southern, quite frankly, because you said, I'm going to take Georgia State. I said, all right, I'll take the other Georgia team. And that's my only thought behind it.
Well, and here's the thing. I mean, the Red Wolves, they played Georgia State later on in the season. I don't think they played Georgia Southern this year. But hopefully, and again, this is just me being biased here, but hopefully all my picks are right and his are – the ones he picked different from me are wrong because, he likes to piggyback off what I say and use that to his advantage. But
10-2, baby.
10-2. But hopefully when we come back next week, you'll see my name with the better record. But I want to actually point something out for next week, okay? Now, of course, the day before on Tuesday, the 1st of October, I will turn 22. And the day after when we do the show and, we get everything ready for you guys, It's going to be somebody else's birthday.
It is going to be somebody else's birthday, and quite frankly, if you don't know who it is, it's mine.
It's yours.
It's going to be mine. So October 1st and October 2nd, Tristan he's the older person. I know, just look at him. Just look at him. Look at that guy right there. He's the older one. Just born on October 1st, born on October 2nd. And you might be thinking, man, and y'all do a show together? Yep. And you probably won't be able to get rid of us, no matter how hard you try.
Believe it or not, we didn't realize this till 2 years ago, but we've been attached to the hip forever, and it'll probably always be that way. But hey, who knows? Maybe we do a big celebration next week for both of our birthdays, and it's Isaiah Nelson's birthday too, so who knows? But I will say that's all we're going to have this week. Ladies and gentlemen, come back next week for the birthday extravaganza. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been watching Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV. Remember, say something positive and tell a friend you love them. See you later, guys.